Hi, this is Lauren from LSP Actions and welcome to the video tutorial for the LSP Scrunched texture background overlays. Love them or loathe them, creased crinkly paper backdrops are a huge trend for your clients right now. They're guaranteed to grab attention on socials and get your clients' attention fast. I've designed not 10, not 20, but 45 crinkly, wrinkly, scrunchy, creased up background overlays that you can drag and drop right over your image in Photoshop to instantly add that kind of fashionable, rumpled, editorial style Vogue backdrop to your photo in a matter of seconds, without having to ruin any of your expensive paper backdrops by crunching them all up or shooting on an actual scrunchy background. These are a mix of paper textures and fabric textures. And using these overlays, it means you'll always have both options to offer your clients. So you shoot your client on an original smooth background, for example, or one of your lovely expensive fabric backgrounds. And you can add these crunchy textures afterwards. So you'll always have both versions, one smooth and uncreased and one creased. So you have both options to go with. You haven't just, because I mean, if you just shoot on creased, that's it, that's your option. So this way you have both. These backdrops are crinklier than an elephant's left knee and they add some amazing effects. So let's get started with how you use these. So after downloading from the LSP Actions website, let me just grab this up, you will get the LSP Scrunch Background Texture Applicator. This is a freebie that I throw in for you that allows you to add these scrunched textures easily and simply, and you can apply them by hand if you want to. I'll show you both ways. You also get a zip file containing these scrunched background texture overlays. This is a zip folder, so before you use in Photoshop, this is probably the most important part, is you extract this. In Windows, you right click and you hit extract all. On the Mac, you can double click and use the archive utility option. I'm working on Windows right now, but it's a very, very similar process. So that is just opening now, it's just unzipping into this LSP Scrunch background texture overlay. So you'll notice that if you hover over, the zip file will tell you it's a compressed file. So go ahead and open these and you will notice the 45 scrunched background textures in here. Lots and lots to choose from. You might be wondering why they're grey. Well, they're grey because that means they will adapt to any background you use at all. They will not affect the colour of your background, which is great. So I'm going to first show you how to apply these by hand manually without any actions, and then I'm going to show you the actions and the extra options. So let's go ahead and grab one. What you can do, open up your image in Photoshop and you can grab any of the scrunch background textures, drag and drop this over your image. What you're going to want to do is resize this, so drag that to fit, hit enter or the little checkbox up here, and what will happen is that will place down over your image. Now these backdrops are lit from the left with the light coming down. If your subject is lit from the right, you're going to want to either when you're in transform mode, you can right click and click flip horizontal, or you can go to edit, transform, flip horizontal, and that will do the same thing. Next up, what you want to go to do if you're applying my now, I'm using Photoshop Creative Cloud. This goes also if you're working in Elements or an older version of Photoshop. It's come up to here on the layers panel where it says normal. If you can't see your layers panel, come up to window and hit layers. Up here where it says normal, change this to soft light or overlay, and you can see we've instantly got that scrunched up background texture added to your image. Next up, you're going to want to add a layer mask. That's down here, the little rectangle with the circle in. Add that and that will add a white layer mask to your image. A layer mask is like a lottery scratch card. White means show and black means hide. So if you go ahead and grab a brush, set to black, what you can do is just start painting this off of your subject. You're probably going to have to zoom in. And the most important thing is it comes off the skin and any light areas that you can see the creases on. The majority of the background, the kind of the mid-tone on these backgrounds is grey, and that really does allow for this brilliant blending. So if you're adding by hand, you can just go ahead and brush this off your subject. Just be very, very careful. And there we go. That was roughly done. You can also use a soft brush. I like to use normal mode, 100% opacity and 25% flow. And if you want to, you can add this along the bottom just to kind of fade that texture in, that scrunchy texture, if you want to. Now let me show you how to work using the actions. They make it a lot easier and give you more options. So in your downloads, you will notice you can also download the LSP, the Scrunched Background Texture Applicator set. So you can double click or drag and drop this into Photoshop. Oh, it's trying to place. Okay, it's because I've got an image open. Ignore me, just double click it. Okay, so if you've got no images open, you can do that. So that's just working there. If you can't see your actions, come up to Window and hit Actions, and you will see right here is the Scrunched Paper Texture Applicators. These are currently on grey mode. When actions are on grey mode, you need to click the action and hit the play button. When actions are on button mode, unfortunately in Elements you can't do button mode, but in full versions of Photoshop you can. Click the burger menu, hit button mode, and you get the colours. What you're going to want to do, make sure your actions are free floating. If they're kind of up here or something, it's not going to work. So grab it where it says actions and drag them out. Grab the side and just bring it in until it snaps into a nice neat column like this. And magically your actions will be in coloured order. I've colour coded them for you and organised them so they're easy to use. In the actions you have CT, that's Photoshop Creative Cloud here, and you also have old versions of Photoshop, CS4, CS5, CS6, Photoshop Elements. You have those ones here. The reason I've separated these is because in Photoshop Creative Cloud, which is what I'm using now, it has the option for subject selection, which makes it even more believable and better and easier for masking. If you're using an old version, you can apply them just the same as I'm going to show you, but they won't do subject selection, so you're going to have to do that masking that I showed you a minute ago, where you're painting with a black brush off of your subject. So, in the actions you have apply to a plain background, like this, apply to a patterned background, we'll get through to that, and apply to a pure white or black background, very, very light or very, very dark. This is just a normal background, so I'm going to hit apply to plain background here. And what this is going to do is going to open up the scrunch textures on your computer. If it doesn't, you can go ahead and find them. And these are kind of in order, so you have these scrunchy papers to begin with, going down into the scrunched up fabrics and the textures, coming down into the more avant-garde options, and then right at the bottom here you have these, and you see they have some floor and wall in them. These are really, really cool. So let's go ahead and add one of these to the image. And you can see here what you want to do is think on your image. Sometimes you can see the floor and the wall join if you shot in studio, other times you can't. So just think where that would roughly be. Make sure it's filling both sides and the top of your image and hit enter. The action is just playing out now. It's just going to take a few seconds because it's figuring out how to blend the texture to your image and add that subject selection. You can see there it's done, easily done. And that's it, we can just turn this on or off. Boom. If the subject selection isn't great, you can just click on this layer mask with a black brush and brush the texture off anywhere you don't want it to show. Or you can brush it back on again. So I've just noticed here around the knee there's a little bit of something going on. So I'm just going to brush that in. And there we go. Awesome. So what you can do as well, it will automatically go onto soft line on this. If you're adding to a white or a black, it will go onto hard light. If you're adding to patterned, it will be overlay. So where it says soft light, you can come down and you can choose overlay. You can play with these blend modes to, make it even more funky. Overlay will make it a little bit firmer. Next up, once you've added your crunchy texture background, you can come to the bonus extras by LSP. Make sure your texture's selected first, so add it in and select it. Make sure your masking's done and everything. Oh, by the way, sorry, I'm jumping around all over the place. This black box here where it says Gaussian blur, if you grab a white brush, you can blur the texture, just like this. So we can add a blurred texture background, which is really quite cool. You can also double click on the Gaussian blur and you can change the level of blur to suit your image. So where were we? Oh yes, the bonus extras. So here if you do extra add the editing layers, make sure you've selected the texture. You can flip the texture too, just by clicking it like this. And it will flip the texture left to right, can you see? So if you realise you've added it and you want it the other way, the lighting's in a different position, you can flip it. So I'm going to click add the editing layers here. And this is just going to take a moment to work. And what this has done is added some, let me make that brush smaller, that's huge. It's added some editing layers in to your texture. You've got lift and brighten, dark and deepen, contrast, intense and calm. All of these are on 0% opacity. So for example, lift and brighten, all you need to do is slide the opacity up until you're happy. If you're using one of these, you might notice it also brightens the bottom. So simply grab your black brush and come along the bottom here, just to rub that out. Very, very simple. The same with darken, deepen. You can slide the opacity on that one. That will darken the texture down. Because I'm using one that, if your text is covering the whole image, this isn't even a problem. If you've got the ones with a little bit of flaw in them, you can just rub a black brush along. Really, really simple. Same with contrast. You can add contrast in there. You can make it more intense. I'm sliding this one. This is a cool one if you really want that very crinkly, crumply look to your background. So that's before and after, make it more intense. Or you can go the other way and you can calm the texture. You see, this is calming it, fading it, and blending it into your image. So we have all of these options here that you can play with. They're completely optional, just to play with if you want them. You also have adding floor perspective as well, which I'll show you in a moment. We have add a grain texture, so you can play this one with a white brush. You can paint the grain over your texture like this, and you can turn that up or down and play with that one. Everything is editable, everything is tweakable. We have vintage toning, you can add that over the top too. And just know what that does there. You can release that clipping mask if it clips in. Clipping mask is literally just, you know, Photoshop saying, do you want me to edit the image below? All these things. So let's go and a different image here. Okay, this is a cool one. I'm going to go apply to a plain background again and choose a texture. Which one should we do? We could literally just use any of these. They're all super cool. I'm going to use a full length one because I'm going to show you how to use the perspective. How about this guy here? So what you're going to do is just make sure this fills your whole image. You zoom out a little bit. Hit enter and the action will play out. And that's just adding the texture now. So it's going to just blend the texture and select the subject, which is wonderful. You can even see the background line there adding up with the original background line. So let's go ahead and add a texture in. This is a guided action, so click on the texture layer. I'm going to add the perspective. Did I say texture? I mean perspective. Add floor perspective, it's going to come on. Using the marquee tool, which is up here, it's a little rectangular box. Draw a rectangle around the floor area. Okay, so you do that up to about here. And then we click the action again. It will go bright red on button mode. On grey mode, it will be open. The perspective transform will be selected, so you just drag on the bottom corner here. And you can see this is adding perspective to the background. When you're done, hit enter or the little check. If you're not happy with the perspective, you can undo and just play the action again. Really, really simple. You can see there now we have a realistic floral wall texture, and that is a very, very realistic background, all in just a few clicks. If at any point it's not selected properly, for example, maybe it just didn't quite select your subject properly, you can zoom in with a black or a white brush. You can just bring this texture in. If it goes over the clothes a little bit, it doesn't really matter. You just definitely don't really want this to be going on any skin or details. And there we go. I mean, look at that. It's just so cool. And you wouldn't know that that wasn't shot in camera. And you can literally turn it off and have both versions. Again, you can play the these perspective layers. What I am going to do is flip this texture because the shadow in the image is coming from the left. And the shadow in the texture, the shadow in the image, sorry, is coming from the right. Shadow in the texture is actually coming from the left. So just click on the texture and flip. And there we go. And now it totally, everything adds up. Everything makes sense. Before and after. Zoom on in. Show you the detail there. Before and after. Super, super cool. Let's go ahead and add another texture. This beautiful image here by Anna Brand. I'm going to add a texture in. Let's just straighten that background just a touch. I'm just going to add the texture into this already textured background. So if you already have a pattern on your backdrop, you can use apply to a patterned background. That's if you've got any textures or anything like that. So I'm going to click this one. Let's grab one to add. Let's grab one of the floor and wall joins. How about this guy here? So I'm just going to bring that right up here along in line with that background. And just hit enter and the action is playing out. Again, remember, if you're not on Creative Cloud, you're going to need to do the subject selection, but Creative Cloud will do that for you. I'm just going to hit the move tool, bring this down just a little, and there we go. Okay, so you can reposition the background if you want to, so I'm just bringing it in line with that fold. And you can see in the background now we have this scrunchy paper. Of course you could bring this over the whole subject if you wanted to. I just find joining it up when it has the bottom, because like the ones on the end do have the bottom added in, you can add this to the wall and make this kind of half background on the wall, which is really, really cool. And then we have before and after. And that's added to the patterned background, and you can change the blend mode, you can mess around with this if you want to, you can add the editing layers, you can flip the texture if you need to, make sure the light's lining up, the light in the texture is from the left. Add the floor perspective grain, you can call vintage toning, dusty vignette. And we also have your toolkit here that I've added in, so you can snapshot. We can add just a basic vignette which darkens around the edges, looks really nice. Just at a click, and can sharpen it up as well, which you can slide if you want to sharpen just that whole finished image there. Super, super quick, super easy to use. I love these. So let's go ahead and add one to a pale background here. So I'm going to click the apply to white or black background. And let's choose one to add to the white. Let's go for, which one? I'm just going to click any of them. There's so many to choose from, so you can have really good fun with these. Just adding as many as you like. Because there's 45 every time you share an image, it'll be a completely different scrunch. Whereas if at home you've only got one scrunchy backdrop, that's kind of your choice. Whereas this way you have 45 options, and you can have both. So I'm just grabbing I'm playing the perspective, so I'm talking in the background. Play that again, hit continue, as we did a moment ago, and we can just add that perspective in there and hit enter. Okay, let's go for one more. So this subject here, you can see she's actually leaning on the wall. So let's get rid of these layers quickly. Let's go add, apply to a white background. Which texture shall we choose? Let's go for something very, very crumply and detailed. How about this one here? So in this image, you can see the light is coming from the left, and that's the same direction as the light in this texture, so there's no need to flip it. I'm going to hit enter. And the action is playing out. It's going to make the subject selection. Always double check the subject selection. You may need to zoom in and refine that. And of course, if you're on an older version of Photoshop, if you're on Elements or anything like that, you're going to want to, go in and mask it manually. If at any point you're not happy with the texture, you just hit delete and you go again. So I wasn't completely happy with that one. Going for something a little bit paler. That one was quite dark. I do want something quite heavily textured, so how about we go for, how about this one? So what this is going to do is going to add to the white background, as it did just a second ago, and if you don't like it, you just hit delete and add another one. It's really, really simple. Okay, I like that one, that's really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that perspective in first, so by playing the add for perspective action, and grab your marquee tool. Now that floor perspective, if you think about where the background is, it's kind of right here. It's right there. She's pretty much on that background. So we really don't need to add a lot of perspective onto this one, but it is important to be there. Perspective is one of the things that will really make or break your image. And we're done. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab a black brush and I'm just going to lightly bring the texture off the area where that shadow would be, just really lightly, just to add that in. And add the extra editing layers because there's a darken in there too, and just to kind of add that shadow in. So I'm going to bring the darkness up, but what I'm going to do is Control or Command I to invert that layer, and then using a white brush I'm just going to bring that on over where her shadow is, just to accentuate the shadow in the creases even more. So there we go, before and after. Really fun. It's really fun to play with. I love playing with these, and because you've got the before and after there, you just save both versions. You have a smooth and you have the rough. Really, really good fun. And you can get these on the LSP Actions website, the Scrunchy Texture Overlays, and they're over at www.lsp-actions.com. 45 crunchy, scrunchy textures. And dare say they're even scrunchier than the face my toddler pulled yesterday when she asked to try the lemon slice out of my drink. That was scrunchy. These are even more scrunchy. So I hope you love them. Please join the LSP Actions Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/lemon sky actions, and I'll see you over there. I'm Lauren. Thanks for watching.